everyone, I am Dr. Vishal Rajput from Himalayan School of Biosciences in Swami Rama Himalayan University, Dehradun. And today this is going to be my sixth lecture in the module of Biogeochemical cycle, and this lecture will focus on the sulfur and sulfur cycle. First of all, I would like to talk about certain important aspects of the sulfur, such as sulfur is one of the most abundant element on the earth. It is yellow in color, brittle, tasteless and odorless non-metal, and sulfur is present in all kinds of the proteins. Basically, you can understand the importance of sulfur as it is associated with all kinds of the protein, and how proteins are important for our survival, you already know that. Now, plants directly absorb sulfur containing amino acids such as methionine, cysteine and cysteine. Sulfur is released into atmosphere by burning of fossil fuels, volcanic activities, as well as the decomposition of organic molecules. I have already mentioned in previous lectures that decomposition is very important for the movement of the or cyclic movement of the elements, because decomposition release or returns the element to the ecosystem. In the terrestrial condition, sulfur is stored in underground rocks and minerals. It is released by precipitation, which is also known as the rain, weathering of the rocks, which is erosion or the cracking or the dismantling of the rocks, as well as the geothermal vents. Geothermal vents are very oftenly found in Uttarakhand, as you must be knowing about the Kedarnath and Badrinath and several other places where you can easily find a geothermal vent where hot water springs are releasing over there. So this is the reason of those particular part of the ecosystem and known as the geothermal vent. And geothermal vents are infusing or influxing quite a good amount of the sulfur into the environment. Next is sulfur cycle. The flow of sulfur in nature can be understood by various aspects, such as sulfur is released by the weathering of the rocks. Sulfur comes in contact with air and is converted into sulfates. Now, sulfates are taken up by plants and microbes are and converted into the organic form. Now, this is the point where the inorganic form of the sulfur is converted into the organic form, which can be readily absorbed or utilized by the living organisms. The organic form of sulfur is then consumed by animals through their food, and thus sulfur moves into the food chain. And when any element enters or converts into the organic form and entered by one part of the ecosystem, it can now move or spread throughout the food chain and the food web. Further, when the animal die, some of the sulfur is released by the decomposition, while some other enter the tissues of the microbes. Here two pathways open. The first path is, due to the decomposition, sulfur openly comes back to the ecosystem, and the second path is some small amount of the sulfur is decomposed or deposited in the decomposing microbes. They are also accumulating it. Further, there are several natural sources such as volcanic eruptions, evaporation of water, breakdown of organic matter in swamps. These release sulfur directly into the atmosphere, and this sulfur falls on the earth with the help of the precipitation or the rainfall. So these are natural processes. The evaporation of water is a natural process, volcanic eruption is a natural process, and breakdown of the organic matter in a swamp is also a natural process.
सर आपकी कार रोड पे है बाहर?
नहीं, मेरी साइड में है, पार्किंग पे। कौन सी कलर की कार है?
कौन से कलर की है?
कौन सी कार है? अरे कलर पूछ लो ना.
कलर नहीं बता रहा है.
वाइट नहीं, मेरी ब्लू है.
उस वाली स्लाइड से आप कंटिन्यू.
नहीं, ये मैंने कंप्लीट कर दी थी.
अच्छा हाँ, तो
इसके बाद मैंने now this is the pictorial representation of movement of sulfur in ecosystem, and it is quite complex. First of all, I would like to explain that there are two reservoirs present in the ecosystem. Now reservoir is a one part or one aspect of the ecosystem which is receiving the constant influx of particular element and constant outflow of particular element must be called as the reservoir. It is kind of their temporary storage of particular element. Here you can see that sulfate or sulfur in the form of the sulfate is found in the lithosphere. This is the reservoir of the sulfur. So huge turnover is connected with this particular system, and all the movement move from one place to another place. Here you can see that atmospheric sulfur, which has been released with the help of the volcanic activity, volcanic eruption or precipitation, it is being taken to the earth or the ground level with the help of the in the form of the SO2 gas and taken up with the help of the precipitation, which is readily absorbed by the plant residue. Moreover, animal manures and the biosolids are also adding the influx of the sulfur to the ecosystem. Here you can see that arrow of these particular two arrows, they are showing the cyclic movement of the sulfur from one aspect to another aspect. Here one aspect is constant, named as the reservoir, which is found in the lithosphere or the soil. Apart from that, the sulfate which is found in the form of the found in the lithosphere is being directly uptaken by the plants with the help of the roots, and moreover it returns to that in the form of the elemental sulfate when they decay or they perform the oxidation. Moreover, apart from that, bacterial reduction is also taking place from reservoir present in the lithosphere, and it is found in the reduced sulfur formed in the H2S. Apart from that, some absorbed or mineral surface or sulfur are also present in the lithosphere, and they are also being going in or going out from the reservoir of the sulfur. Apart from that, there are some the conversion of sulfate is taking place in the form of the H2S and being transferred to the plants by the lithotrophic bacteria. Here the microbes are getting involved in the movement. On the other side, when the plants die and the decomposition takes place, this particular H2S return to the soil and keep moving in a cyclic way. This is how the whole sulfur system is being moved from one system to another system. Here this is atmosphere, this is the lithosphere, and whole cyclic system, whole cyclic manner is taking place over here. Next slide is steps of the sulfur cycle. As sulfur cycle is a very complex process and it includes multiple phases or the steps to complete the single cycle. First of all, decomposition of organic compounds. Protein degradation release amino acids that contain sulfur, and sulfates are reduced to H2S by the action of several bacteria. Oxidation of hydrogen sulfide to elemental sulfur. Hydrogen sulfide oxidized to produce elemental sulfur, and certain photosynthetic bacteria from the various families, they initiate the oxidation process. So here the oxidation of hydrogen sulfide to elemental sulfur is performed by bacteria so that this can be make available to the other part of the ecosystem like plants. Further, this oxidation of elemental sulfur. Elemental sulfur present in the soil cannot be utilized directly by the plants. So, this elemental sulfur is not in the form in which plants can absorb it or use it. So, their conversion is essential over here. and this type of conversion is performed again with the help of the microorganisms. Here several microorganisms, they are converting elemental sulfur to the sulfates. Further, sulfates must be reduced. So next step is reduction of the sulfate. Sulfates are reduced to hydrogen sulfide by again microorganism, and this occurs in two steps. The first one, the sulfates are converted to sulfide by utilizing ATP, energy molecule, and secondly, the reduction of sulfide to hydrogen sulfide, by which now at this stage can be utilized by the plants. So these steps are basically focusing on the conversion from one form to another form of the sulfur, so that this sulfur can enter or in the food chain or the food web, or may be absorbed by the plants. Now the most important thing, how human activities are affecting the functioning of sulfur cycle. Basically the burning of coal, natural gas and any other form of the fossil fuel are greatly increasing the amount of the sulfur in atmosphere and ocean, and most importantly they are depleting the sedimentary rock sink, which is the foundation or the framework of the ocean ecosystem, and they are affecting directly on them. Moreover, without human impact, sulfur would stay tied up in the rocks for millions of the years until it was uplifted through the tectonic events and then released through the erosion or the weathering process. Normally, movement of the tectonic plates as well as the erosion or weathering of the rocks is a very slow process, and it releases a very small amount of the sulfur. But due to the mining, deforestation, excavation which is carried out by the human, they are releasing a huge amount of the sulfur in a very short span of time, which is also and due to this earth is not capable of handling such huge influx of the sulfur. Further, instead it is being drilled, pumped and burned at a steadily increasing rate. As usual, human activities are involved. Over the most polluted areas, there has been a 30-fold increase in the sulfate deposition, and all because of the human activity, because human activities are doing drilling, pumping, burning, and these all activities are adding a huge amount of the sulfur to the ecosystem. And normally in normal conditions this amount of sulfur does not get released into the ecosystem because of the gradual processes. But human, what it is doing, human is bypassing or creating shortcuts of release of burst of the sulfur, and sulfur, huge amount of sulfur cannot be maintained or settled in the system naturally. Thank you.